My fiancé publicly humiliated me at our wedding as a prank, so I pulled a bigger one by canceling everything. Now she's begging for another chance. I, 28M, was supposed to marry Vanessa, 27F, the woman I thought was my soulmate. We had been together for 4 years, and while I knew she had a thing for pranks and attention, I never thought she'd take it too far. Turns out, I should have seen the warning signs. Vanessa had a habit of turning every serious moment into a joke. When I proposed, she pretended to say no for 5 full minutes before laughing and accepting. When I got a promotion, she made a big speech at the party about how I got lucky instead of acknowledging my hard work. She always said it was just for fun, but it was always at my expense. Still, I loved her. I thought, that's just who she is. But I started having doubts when her friends hinted at a big surprise. She had planned for the wedding. When I pressed for details, they just laughed and said, "Oh, you'll see." That set off alarm bells. I didn't know what she was planning, but I had a gut feeling it wouldn't be good. That's when I called my friend Mark, who happens to be a lawyer, and told him I need a little insurance. Together, we drafted a completely fake prenup, loaded with legal jargon, and one very specific clause. If either party engages in public embarrassment of the other before the signing of this contract, all jointly planned financial obligations are immediately nullified, and a public apology must be issued. It was completely unenforceable, but it looked real. I had it printed, signed, and ready, just in case Vanessa pulled something. Then came the wedding. Everything seemed perfect, until the moment we stood at the altar. Right before we were supposed to exchange vows, Vanessa grinned, took the microphone from the officiant, and said, "I have a little surprise for my wonderful soon-to-be husband." She turned to the crowd and dramatically waved toward the doors. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to the real love of my life." I froze. The guests turned in confusion as a man walked in. Vanessa's ex, Jason. Vanessa beamed. "Come on up, Jason. You didn't think I'd get married without my first love here, did you?" Jason strode up to the altar, grinning. The crowd murmured in confusion. I felt like I was in a bad dream. Then Vanessa turned to me with the biggest smile and said, "Babe, I just couldn't say I do without making sure Jason approved first. I mean, he was such a big part of my life and, well, we've been talking a lot lately." "Talking a lot?" Jason clapped me on the back and smirked. "Relax, man. It's just a joke." The bridesmaids laughed like this was the funniest thing in the world. But Vanessa wasn't done. "Oh, and just for fun, I had a little poll running among my bridesmaids this whole time. We were taking bets on whether I'd actually go through with the wedding or not." She whipped out her phone and showed a group chat, screens filled with laughing emojis, votes on whether she'd fake cold feet, and even bets on whether I'd cry at the altar. The room went dead silent. My mother looked like she was about to faint. My father's face turned beet red. My best man just muttered, "What the actual F?" I felt my hands shaking. Vanessa was standing there expecting me to just laugh it off. "Oh, come on, babe, lighten up. You didn't really think I was going to leave you, right?" That's when I smiled, because I had the perfect response ready. The room was dead silent. Vanessa stood at the altar, grinning like she had just pulled off the greatest prank in history. Her bridesmaids were still giggling. Jason was standing beside me like he belonged there, and half the guests were looking at me with pity in their eyes. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. My mother was clutching my father's arm, looking like she was about to cry. My best man, Ryan, looked ready to swing at Jason. And Vanessa? She was still waiting for me to laugh along with her. "Oh, come on, babe," she said, nudging me. "Say something." I finally took a deep breath and smiled. "Wow," I said, shaking my head. This is amazing." Vanessa beamed. She thought I was going along with it. She had no idea that I had been ready for this moment. I turned to the officiant. "Hey, do we have a table for signing the marriage license? I need to grab something." The officiant, who looked just as horrified as the rest of the guests, nodded and gestured toward a small table off to the side. I calmly walked over, pulled a black folder from my bag, and held it up for everyone to see. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, I'd like to share a document with my dear fiancé." Vanessa tilted her head. "Wait, what?" I slowly unclipped the folder and pulled out the fake prenup. "Vanessa," I said, keeping my voice steady, I had my lawyer draft up a little agreement before the wedding. Just a small precaution, just in case you ever decided to do something like this. I held up the contract so the guests could see the official-looking stamp on the bottom. Vanessa's face immediately lost its color. "What the hell is that?" she asked, her smile finally faltering. "Oh, just a little clause," I said, pretending to flip through the pages. "See this part right here? It states that if either party engages in public humiliation before the signing of the marriage license, then all joint financial obligations, like the wedding, honeymoon, and shared assets, are immediately null and void." The guests gasped. Vanessa blinked rapidly. "Wait, what? That's not real." "Oh, it's very real," I said smoothly. "It also requires the guilty party to issue a public apology, right here, in front of all of our guests." Jason snorted. "Dude, you can't be serious. This is a joke, right?" I turned to him and smirked. "Oh, I take pranks very seriously." Vanessa was starting to sweat. "Babe, this is crazy. You're not actually mad, are you?" I tilted my head. "Why would I be mad, Vanessa? This is hilarious. It's all part of the fun, right? So here's my prank. I'm canceling this entire wedding." Dead. Silence. Her smile shattered. "Wait, what?" "Oh, don't look so shocked," I said, snapping the folder shut. "You had your joke, now it's my turn. Wedding's off." The room exploded with whispers and gasps. The officiant awkwardly stepped back. Vanessa's face went from pale to bright red. "You're joking." "Am I?" I said, turning to my best man. "Ryan, would you do the honors?" Ryan grinned and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen and loud wedding music blared, except instead of the traditional march, it was Hit the Road Jack. Some guests laughed. Some just stared in shock. "Vanessa?" She looked like she was about to hyperventilate. "You're not serious," she hissed. "You're not walking away." I grinned. "I literally am." I turned to my parents. "I think we're done here." My mom nodded, and my dad immediately started telling guests that the wedding was over. Then I turned to Jason, who was still smirking like this was all a joke. "Hey, Jason," I said, "you like stealing people's fiancés, right? Well, congrats. She's all yours." That wiped the smirk off his face. Vanessa whirled around. "Jason, tell him this is stupid." Jason backed up. I think I'm gonna head out, actually." "What?" He was already walking down the aisle. Now everyone was whispering. The bridesmaids were awkwardly looking at their drinks, some guests were laughing outright, and Vanessa looked like her entire world just collapsed. "You can't just leave me like this," she screamed. I turned back one last time. "Vanessa, you love attention so much? Well, congrats. You're getting it." And with that, I walked out of my own wedding, leaving her standing there, alone, humiliated, and exactly where she deserved to be. Walking out of that wedding was the best decision of my life. As I stepped outside, my best man followed, along with my parents and a handful of guests who wanted nothing to do with Vanessa after what she had done. Behind me, she was still at the altar, screaming my name, but I didn't even turn around. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. My phone blew up with texts and missed calls from Vanessa. At first, she acted confused, as if she couldn't understand why I had left. Then came the anger. Furious messages about how I had humiliated her and how she couldn't believe I would ruin the wedding over something so minor. She insisted it was just a joke and that I had overreacted. When I ignored her, she switched tactics, saying she would tell everyone I had abandoned her at the altar. That was rich, considering she was the one who had turned our wedding into a circus. But she hadn't counted on one thing: receipts. My best man had screenshotted her bridesmaids group chat before we left, the same chat where they had been placing bets on whether she'd actually go through with the wedding or fake cold feet. That alone destroyed any attempt she made to rewrite the narrative. Word spread quickly. People who had been at the wedding started talking. Guests who had been uncomfortable with what she did now had the full context and weren't afraid to share it. Within a few days, her reputation was in shambles. Her own parents called me, apologizing for what she had done. Apparently, they had warned her not to pull any stunts at the wedding, but she hadn't listened. Even her friends, the ones who had egged her on, started distancing themselves when they realized how bad she looked. It was one thing to joke around, but publicly humiliating your fiancé at your own wedding? No one wanted to be associated with that. Then came the financial consequences. Vanessa tried demanding I pay her back for the wedding costs. That was funny, considering I had covered nearly everything. The venue, my card. The catering, my account. Even the honeymoon trip she had been so excited for, booked under my name. And with one phone call, I canceled it all. She was left with nothing. No wedding, no honeymoon, no sympathy. A week later, she showed up at my door. I wasn't surprised. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. It was clear that she finally realized how badly she had messed up. She tried to apologize, saying she hadn't meant for things to go so far, that she never thought I would actually leave. She tried to tell me she still loved me, that we could fix this if I just gave her a second chance. I wasn't interested. I handed her an envelope and watched as she opened it with shaking hands. Inside was an invitation, not a real one, just a mock wedding rehearsal set for the same venue where she had humiliated me. The date was today, and the guest list, everyone who had witnessed her stunt. There was no groom's name, just one simple note. Now we're even. She looked up at me, speechless. I didn't say a word. I just shut the door and walked away. Vanessa had wanted to turn our wedding into a joke. She got what she wanted, except the punchline was her own life falling apart. Vanessa never recovered from what happened. Her stunt went viral after someone shared clips from the wedding. People shredded her online, calling her the bride who got left as a joke. She lost job opportunities, friends, and even family support. Her bridesmaids abandoned her when they realized they'd be dragged down with her. Jason? He wanted nothing to do with her after the backlash. He ghosted her and moved on. I thrived. I took time to heal, focused on my career, and met someone who actually respected me. Meanwhile, Vanessa kept trying to reach out, emails, messages, even showing up at places she thought I'd be. I never responded. The last I heard, she was struggling financially and still single. She wanted a joke? She became the joke.